Hello and welcome to episode 18 of the Driver's Debrief. I'm your host, Nicholas Patty, and we are continuing the hat rotation. As you'll notice, I try to wear a different motorsports hat every single episode. Dug deep for this one, and we pulled out our Fernando Alonso Toyota Le Mans hat. So just keep that in mind as we go through every episode. Let's see what hats we can dig up that are related to the world of motorsports. But welcome, guys, to the newest episode. Christmas is done and gone. The holidays, for the most part, are behind us. And it is all eyes forward to 2025, whether that's for motorsports or in our own, individual lives. We're all looking forward to next year. Let me know what your New Year's resolutions are in the comments. This is live right now on X. We upload these episodes after the fact to YouTube and Rumble. So as you can see at the top of the screen, there are tags at Driver's Debrief on all of those platforms. So please follow, subscribe, like the video, comment, and share what your New Year's resolutions are, or what you're also most excited to see in the world of racing for next year. Is it new driver pairings? Is it new cars or team entries? Is it a new series? Are you going to try to watch an existing series and follow new teams? What is it that you're most excited for next year? This episode is going to be a lot shorter, like criminally shorter. And I know I said that about last week, but somehow we pulled a 30-minute episode out of the bag. This one's going to be much shorter because we just have a little bit of motorsports news and not a lot of car news. And by not a lot, I mean I just have updates on something we talked about last week. And there was a fair bit of news that dropped right after we wrapped up episode 17. And so we'll go through and talk about some of that in the motorsports world, and then we will get into it. So let's start off with the car corner. In the car corner, we have Honda and Nissan news. So we talked about the fact that there's just public discussions of a merger. They're considering a merger. They're looking at a merger. They're wanting a merger. Everything merger related is being discussed right now when it comes to Honda and Nissan. The thing that has been added since I talked to you last week is the confirmation that this includes Mitsubishi, which is, for the most part in the U.S., a defunct brand. I wouldn't be able to tell you what Nissan sells in the U.S. or Mitsubishi sells in the U.S. I know there's some economy cars, but I don't even know the model name. So completely irrelevant for the most part. The last car I remember Mitsubishi making that was worth noting was obviously the Lancer Evo 8, which was awesome, but that was 2010. So not relevant at all. But this discussion includes Mitsubishi. But as this last week has progressed, apparently some of these discussions have started to hit some roadblocks. It's not necessarily falling apart, but there are considerations that are causing them to... I mean, quite frankly, this came on really suddenly. All of a sudden, oh, okay, two of the world's, biggest, most, I shouldn't say most historic, but cornerstones of the Japanese auto market are considering a merger. This is huge. This is big news. It came on really quick. They're starting to have to deal with some of the realities and logistics of this. So we'll continue to update you as that happens. I anticipate first quarter 2025, there will be much more solidified updates. I think they'll at least have something in writing. Whether or not it's signed, I don't know. So that's it for the car corner. Nice and easy. Only 4 minutes in for social plugs and car corner. Let me get some coffee. Man, I'll tell you, HEB has some good coffee. If you're a Texan, you'll know what I'm talking about. Let's move into the cool down room, our motorsports news update segment, whatever you want to call it. So Sports Car 365, one of my favorite automotive motorsport sources. I get a lot of my news from them. They voted, their staff voted, their writers voted, and Porsche has won the manufacturer of the year across international motorsports. That's GT, open wheel where applicable, so Formula E, and otherwise. So Porsche wins manufacturer of the year. Obviously, we covered kind of in our IMSA wrap up and our WEC wrap up the success that Porsche's had. I mean, with championships in hypercar and GTP and GTD and LMGT3. I mean, they basically swept global sports car racing, won a lot of the big races. So it's something that who won Le Mans this year? Porsche didn't. Who won Le Mans? Was it Toyota? I think it was Toyota. But they won a lot of the big races. Won Daytona and stuff like that. So Porsche had an incredible year, but that's kind of been memorialized by that nomination by Sports Car 365 and that award. Pecco Bagnaia believes, moving to MotoGP, that the 2025 fight could actually be Ducati against Fabio Quartararo's Yamaha. Obviously, we heard that Yamaha was making big strides, and I'm going to butcher this because I'm not like a motorcycle engineering person. I just like watching the racing. I believe it was that Yamaha was making a 4-stroke. Is that it? Chad, is that right? The 4-stroke? No. 4-cylinder? I don't remember. Yamaha was making a new motor, and they were the only ones making that new motor. So, anyway, that's what they're testing out. Pecco Bagnaia apparently believes that this could actually lead to them being a lot more competitive than obviously Yamaha has been for the last few years. We'll see. I don't know. Let me know what you think in the X chat as we're live streaming this, or in the comment section on YouTube and Rumble. I have some release dates for some of the teams right now in MotoGP when they're going to reveal their new title challengers for 2025. We don't have everybody, but to start, we have Aprilia is going to be January 16th, Gresini January 18th, Ducati January 20th, and then Yamaha and Pramac January 31st. So that's going to be 4 teams within 2 weeks of each other. So that'll be fun. That'll be cool to see. I'm expecting some cool liveries, obviously, for the upcoming season. We'll see if Jorge Martin has anything special on his bike to commemorate the championship win. Austrian local magazines, obviously KTM being Austrian and Red Bull being Austrian, are reporting that the KTM restructuring and then the planned withdrawal that they were going to do from MotoGP will be in 2026. So we will have them on the grid next year for 2025, the existing rider pairing. But then 2026 is kaput. Which, when that happens, it's going to throw the MotoGP riders market into total disarray. Because now you have Brad Binder and is Pedro Acosta still on KTM? Was he on Gas? Guys, I don't remember. All right, it's the holidays. I'm tired. I got work to do. I don't remember everything MotoGP. But we will do in January a lot of season preview episodes, IMSA, MotoGP, Formula One, all that sort of stuff. So you won't have to worry about it if you're forgetting as well. We will recap all of that and kick off 2025 discussing what we can look forward to in each of the individual motorsport series. As I decide to inhale coffee into my lungs, NASCAR. This is actually infuriating, and this may be where the length of this episode comes from, because I'm getting pissed off just even thinking about it, as I was 2 days ago when I saw this news. But NASCAR chair, I forget his name, Steve something. I'm not on it today, guys. I'm just going to throw that out there. Steve something from NASCAR said they're going to use AI to determine NASCAR formats and provide advice on how they should run the sport. To which all the NASCAR fans are saying, have you not been listening to us all season long? How many times? For people who are subscribers and listeners of the podcast, first of all, thank you. If you're not, make sure to follow, subscribe. If you have watched several episodes of this during the year with NASCAR running, you'll have heard me complain about the pit lane 6-minute repair rules, the tow truck NASCAR procedure, where if it's picked up and towed, then you can't re-enter, versus if it's pushed, all this kind of drama, the stage cautions, the playoffs, almost everything that NASCAR has implemented, I have railed against. And not just me, because I'm in these circles on the interwebs. I keep up with people in NASCAR and people in F1 and MotoGP, and I feel like I have a healthy perspective on kind of the general feeling towards certain rules and cars and drivers and stuff like that, whether I agree or disagree. So for instance, somebody tested AI, and with ChatGPT, Grok, and a few other, they were like, hey, should NASCAR add more horsepower to the NASCAR Cup Series cars to make racing more entertaining? And what did Grok say? Yes. So go ahead and you want to pull those restrictors off the Cup cars, guys? we want to put 900 horsepower. No. Okay. So yeah, I don't know. AI will determine how NASCAR is run, which I guess makes me say that we should all flood the internet with exactly what we want in terms of NASCAR formats and rules, so that AI, when it goes to source that and read that information, it can say, it appears that it's very popular that we should have 1,500 horsepower and no traction control in NASCARs. That would be awesome. That'd be cool. Moving from NASCAR into the European sport of Formula One. Apparently, Valtteri Bottas, before he had these discussions and decided that he was going to be an AMG reserve driver, was in talks with Cadillac. This leads me to, I guess, the second or third discussion question of the podcast. So again, comment, YouTube and Rumble. If you're on X, let me know. So if Bottas didn't come to an agreement with Cadillac, what can we learn from that? What can we learn about the Cadillac project, knowing that Bottas did not make a deal with them? So there's a couple things we can think through. Okay, Bottas accepted a reserve driver role, which I think means a full-time ride was not on the table from Cadillac, because there's no way Bottas would accept a reserve role if there was a full-time role on the table. And I think that flies in the face of that is the case regardless of money, regardless of paycheck. It doesn't matter. I think Bottas, if a full-time driver role paid less at Cadillac, which I would be shocked about, but let's say it paid less versus a reserve driver role at Mercedes, Bottas has enough money. He would go towards the driving role. He would stick into that. So I don't think Cadillac offered Bottas a full-time seat. What can we learn from that? Well, I think what that means is Cadillac is not looking for an experienced current F1 driver to be in the team. And by experience, I don't mean a few years. I mean, they're not looking for the quote-unquote veteran to help them develop the car in the program as a full-time driver. So that also means a few things. That means either they already have someone in the team that they haven't announced who can lead that development, who is either a current or former F1 driver that can help them steer the direction and the balance of the car and everything. Because the heavy rumors are Colton Herta, stuff like that, will be a driver for the team. And while that's great, and I think he would do well, he would perform well, the issue with that is Colton Herta doesn't have any experience in terms of F1 car development. Because IndyCar, for the F1 fans that don't watch IndyCar, the whole kind of platform of IndyCar is a lot less development-centric and upgrade-centric than F1. It's a lot more just kind of plug and play. You put the parts on the car, you make changes to setup. And most of the racing comes down to strategy and just driver pace. It's not, so-and-so brought a new aero package and so-and-so brought a new engine package. None of that happens in IndyCar. So when it comes to developing the Formula One car, when it comes to the chassis, the aerodynamics, the engine, the suspension, all that sort of stuff, that's not something that any of their prospective IndyCar transplants will have experience in doing. So I do think Cadillac has a need for an F1 driver or an ex-F1 driver to be a part of the team. So again, if they turn down Bottas, I don't think that's to say, okay, Bottas, we're going to not come to a conclusion on this. We're not going to be able to come to a deal. And we're just not going to have someone on staff. There's got to be somebody within the team. And again, you may say, well, sure, but there's engineers, and we understand that. But you can see between Lewis Hamilton and Fernando Alonso and Max Verstappen, the best drivers in the sport, and others, obviously, having the ability to really give that feedback to engineers and develop the car is almost as important as having the engineers in the first place to do the actual math and physics to get the car there. Because obviously they're not in the car. They're looking through data, but data does not tell the whole story. I refer you back to Pierre Gasly in Las Vegas. I'm losing power, and the engineers are like, no, you look fine, as smoke is pouring out the back of the car. So, that all being said, who do we think with Cadillac is going to be the driver pairing, but also, because we know Daniel Ricciardo isn't doing it either, but also, what else beyond what I've explained can we learn from Cadillac not coming to a conclusion with Valtteri Bottas? If there was a full-time ride on the table, he would have taken it, which means there isn't a full-time ride for a Bottas-type driver, which means that they're focusing on younger drivers who are or are not already in F1. But on top of that, if they're not already in F1, then that means they should or do have a more experienced driver development figure within the team, and who might that be? Besides that, what can we learn from Bottas revealing that he was in discussions with Cadillac and they never came to an agreement? Moving on, but still in F1, please hold. Aston Martin F1 expects their new wind tunnel to be fully functional in February. Jack Doohan obviously announced for 2025 with Alpine. Flavio Briatore came out and has said that Doohan is not a shoo-in. That was not intentional. But that was funny. Doohan is not a shoo-in for 2025 in its entirety. So Flavio has said that Jack Doohan, there's no guarantee he will finish in an Alpine for 2025 if he does not perform, which seems harsh. But I remind you, Flavio Briatore, for those of you Drive to Survive fans, come on in. Come here. Take a seat. All right, sit down. Yep. Set up your blanket, set up your pillows. It's almost nap time. Come take a seat. Get out your snacks, your Pop-Tarts. Flavio Briatore led Renault from being a backmarker team to winning multiple world championships, dethroning Ferrari and really starting kind of the period of drought that Ferrari's been in for the last 15 years and more. Created kind of the Fernando Alonso that we know today in terms of that cunning, ruthless, methodical, precise driver. And this is exactly the type of attitude that Alpine needs if they're going to be competitive. We had Otmar, who his track record is one of success, but never struck me as a leader that would get... Same thing when you look at football, soccer, whatever you want to call it. You need a manager who can really get the team behind them, rally them, be a champion for them, fight for them, where they feel like, okay, well, if everything's going to shit, we have... somebody in our corner. We have our fearless leader that'll go to bat for us. Otmar was never that person. Cyril was never that person. Abitable was never that person. Flavio, absolutely that person. And I think that this attitude towards Jack coming into the team is exactly what Alpine needs and more teams need, which is if you do not perform, your head is on the chopping block. You are not owed a spot here because you're an academy driver. And I know people are going to say, well, you said that about Yuki. Yuki's been performing, so he is owed a spot. Jack right now is an unknown quantity when it comes to his performance in a Formula One car over the course of several races. If he does not perform, done. I think Lance Stroll should have been out years ago. So, I feel like I've been consistent on that, but I think this is a fresh perspective that Flavio is bringing that is much, 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 much needed, especially on a team that has not been performing, that has pedigree, that needs to be brought to the front. You have to have that person that is cutthroat, not afraid to hurt feelings to make the team successful. Sebastian Weldon has been announced as part of the Prema Racing Formula 4 program for 2025. So obviously Sebastian and his brother Oliver, they've been progressing through karts and open wheel and Skip Barber and everything. So Sebastian taking the next step of his racing career into F4. So congratulations for him. And we'll obviously, when there's kind of stuff to talk about with the results, we'll cover that in F4. Moving into sports car racing, Heart of Racing Aston Martin is considering straight piping the Aston Martin Valkyrie for IMSA. So those clips you saw on X and Instagram and TikTok of that V12 screaming down the bank of Daytona? Yeah, it's going to be louder. I'm super excited. Please do it for me, please. Riley Motorsports is expected to take over the Lamborghini GTP program for the Michelin Endurance Cup rounds. This comes off the back, obviously, of Lamborghini kind of scaling back their commitments when it comes to the GTP program. Dubai-based supercar builder Rosa will be making their competitive debut in the Dubai 24 Hours in January with their GTX entry operated by Graf Motorsports. That comes from Sportscar 365. And Kalle Rovanperä, your WRC, I don't know if he's reigning champion, but multi-time champion, is making his GT3 debut in the Dubai 24 Hours in 2025 with Huber Racing in the Porsche GT3R. I was right on the money when I said this episode was going to be 20 minutes. So that concludes the cool down room. That concludes this very short episode. But we're going to be back, obviously, next week, next year. I will see you next year in 2025 with episode 19 of the Driver's Debrief. We're going to continue moving strong. I'm going to kind of do some research. I'm going to put together some pretty comprehensive notes so that we can go through our preview of each season. Kind of dedicated episodes, one for Formula E, one for Formula One, one for IMSA, WEC. And I may combine, open wheel sports cars, MotoGP to kind of reduce the number of episodes because I don't know if there's enough weeks in January to get all those out before the season start. And then we're going to do some preseason predictions for Formula One, obviously kind of the most popular, sport of all the ones we cover. So that'll be super fun. If you have not already, please subscribe on YouTube. We're just a few subscribers short of 30 subscribers. That'd be awesome if we could reach that. Please follow on Rumble. We're at 8 followers. It'd be great if we could hit 10. And obviously, if you want to get minute-by-minute updates throughout the week as these pieces of news break, make sure to follow right here on X if you're watching this live at Drivers Debrief. Make sure to comment what you think based off a few of these discussion questions. I am going to, in January, kick off our interview series where we interview drivers, motorsports personalities, journalists, and I have a roster of a few that I think you're going to be very, very interested in, like multi-time Daytona 24-hour drivers, TRG, Porsche drivers, Formula 4 open wheel champions. I think it's going to be pretty cool. I think you're going to like it. So that all being said, thank you for coming by my little corner of the internet and watching the podcast. This has been episode 18 of the Driver's Debrief. We'll see you next year.